We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some more offseason trade talk around a few teams, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, the Dallas Stars, and the Anaheim Ducks. Plus, we have some updates on some potential contract extensions that are being discussed. The San Jose Sharks have officially hired one of their longtime legendary players. We actually have players on waivers today as well, and we have a bunch of signings to discuss, including some of the early first-round picks of the 2025 NHL Draft. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We might as well kick things off with news from the NHL waiver wire. Not something we get a lot of activity with this time of year, but we do have a couple of players on waivers, and this is unconditional waivers for the purpose of contract termination. So these are both a couple of younger players that are, you could say, not real satisfied with the opportunity or the path in their existing organizations and are looking for an opportunity to go sign somewhere else where they feel is a better opportunity for them. So that includes Yanni Yermo, currently with the Calgary Flames. He was originally a Canuck draft pick who was traded to Calgary when they acquired Elias Lindholm. So he hasn't fared well with the Flames. Split time between, I think, the AHL and the East Coast League, and is looking for a new opportunity. And Toronto Maple Leaf prospect Ty Voigt also on unconditional waivers as well. So both those players will likely clear waivers tomorrow, and then they will be free to sign anywhere. They will become unrestricted free agents. A bunch of other signings here today. Now, we actually had a lot of activity in the signing world. After a long period of uncertainty, the Utah Mammoth are re-signing forward Michael Carcone. Of course, he was a player that many expected to depart the organization. Kind of fell out of favor, wasn't getting as much opportunity last season, and like I said, most people thought he would be moving on this year. And I think really at this point, Utah obviously had some level of interest to bring him back. Maybe they let him explore the market first and see, and maybe the opportunities he was looking for just weren't there. I'm not really sure, but they've re-signed him to a one-year deal at league minimum $775,000. So obviously an opportunity for him to try to refine some consistency here and see if he can get his game on track, and maybe things will work out for him to stay. Maybe he becomes a trade piece. Either way, hoping to increase his value and find that next opportunity, whether it be in Utah or somewhere else, but at least he'll be staying there for the time being. We also find out that Ty Smith, a former fairly high draft pick and highly sought-after prospect for a long time, is going to the KHL. Ty Smith has not really worked out. He had a great run as a junior hockey player. At one point was even a team captain for Team Canada, the U18s. Like, he was progressing, and things were looking up and up, that he was going to be a real good probably second pair defenseman is what a lot of people had him pegged with around his draft time, or maybe the year after he was drafted. And then he's been traded a few times and just hasn't really found that consistent level of game. Of course, he's played with the Devils, the Penguins, the Hurricanes, and just is not getting the chances. He just really hasn't been able to seize his NHL opportunities, as limited as they've become. So he goes to the KHL on a one-year contract, so we'll see at some point if he attempts to make a return. We also got a signing in Boston. They've re-signed 24-year-old RFA forward John Farinacci. He gets a one-year, two-way deal, $775,000 at the NHL level, $90,000 at the AHL level, and $100,000 total guaranteed payout. The Buffalo Sabres have also signed their first-round pick from the 2025 NHL Draft, Frondell Mrtka. Mrtka gets his 3-year entry-level contract. Part of me was a little surprised to see that, because on draft night, some of the pictures that were taken afterwards and that you saw posted to social media, he probably looked like the least excited prospect that went in that first round. The look on his face wearing the Sabres jersey, he just, maybe it's just him. I don't really know his personality off the ice very well, but just didn't give a good vibe, put it that way. But he has signed his ELC with Buffalo. A couple of signings with the Anaheim Ducks today. They've signed 23-year-old RFA goaltender Callie Klang. Gets a one-year, two-way deal, $775,000 and $85,000 in the minors. They've also re-signed Jan Misak as well. 23-year-old RFA centerman gets a one-year, two-way deal too. The Toronto Maple Leafs today signed one of their draft picks from 2024, was taken 151st overall, and that's forward Miroslav Holinka. He gets his 3-year entry-level contract, so good signing there. Winnipeg gets RFA defenseman Tyrell Bauer, on a 1-year, 2-way deal as well, $750. And the Chicago Blackhawks have agreed to terms and signed number 3 overall pick, Anton Frondell, who was taken, of course, very highly here in the very recent 2025 NHL draft. A lot of people wondering what is next for Frondell. Where might he play? Is he going to offer immediate help for Connor Bedard and company? And it sounds like the plan right now is that he's going to play in Sweden next year. So he most likely is not going to see the NHL. It is maybe possible, depending on when his season ends. If if his season's over and he can come over at the end of the year, maybe, but seems probably unlikely at this point. It's a possibility he goes to training camp and then gets reassigned back to Sweden, but even that apparently is not a guarantee, might not happen either. So either way, a player that they really feel like has a really, really bright future, but a player that doesn't seem to be having the impact on the Blackhawks organization in 2025. So we'll see. Either way, at least he got him signed. That's a big part of it. And obviously you want to do what's right for his development. It's just, I know players like Bedard are really looking forward to getting some help and taking this team up so they can stop losing so much. So I know the losing on some of these young players when they're rebuilding, it can certainly be challenging to say the least, and it can be hard on the head a little bit. So obviously the sooner they start on the upswing, the better it is for them, of course. The San Jose Sharks today made a big hire as well, officially adding Joe Thornton onto their roster of staff. Of course, Joe Thornton, longtime San Jose Shark, has been basically hanging around the team doing a lot of unofficial stuff anyway. We've seen him on the ice at development camp. We know he was basically billeting some of their top players. We know that Celebrini and Will Smith were living between him and Marleau. We're building those two young guys. So, he's already basically there doing stuff. I just think in the last year or so, Thornton maybe didn't know exactly what he wanted to do and was just kind of feeling things out, and they're just kind of letting him help out in any way he felt he wanted to. But now he's officially on the payroll, and his title is Player Development Coach and Hockey Operations Advisor. So, like I said, he's already been around, already been doing stuff, just more on an official basis now. So, no big surprise there. And nice to see Joe Thornton involved, because he's certainly a guy who can offer a ton of advice and a lot of great things that he can pass down to the younger generation of players. For sure. I know a couple of players that are involved in contract negotiations. I don't think by the sounds of things that things are too far along with Alex Tuch in Buffalo, but there is a lot of mutual interest to get a long-term deal done with now that the team there has got Bo Byram signed. I expect the Tuch extension to be one of the next things high in priority list here on their agenda. But as of right now, if negotiations haven't really officially begun, it sounds like they've probably traded some, preliminary feelings on how the deal should look, maybe to get an idea where the Tuch camp is on term and money and that kind of stuff, but nothing really official. Probably just a quick exchange just to kind of kick things off. But that is expected to pick up now that they've got some of their other business done. Same goes for Adrian Kempe in Los Angeles. They're expected to negotiate a long-term deal as well. We know Kirill Kaprizov in Minnesota are well underway. Of course, Connor McDavid. I don't know where things are at with McDavid. Things have been quiet on that front. But again, maybe they're just doing a good job of not getting anything leaked out as well. Now, onto the trade front. We're going to take a look at a variety of players here. We're going to look at Anaheim, which comes from a variety of information from both Elliot Friedman and Frank Saravalli. Then we're going to look at the Nick Kypreos article for Sportsnet and the Toronto Star today, looking at his new trade bait board. And Kypreos has a lot to say about some interesting players. We're going into some Leaf stuff from Montreal, Dallas, etc. But the Anaheim Ducks, we'll start with Elliot Friedman. He had mentioned a couple of comments recently on Mason McTavish and Lucas Dostal, saying, of course, they're both RFAs right now. And he says that he doesn't expect, and he would be quite shocked if either of them get a long-term lucrative deal. As much as they are, I think, already proven enough to be really big long-term pieces to that franchise, it just doesn't seem to be the Pat Verbeek way of doing business. He feels that Verbeek is going to push for a bridge, and clearly Verbeek, as the GM, he's probably going to do his best to win that negotiation. So, obviously we know he's grinded some other players in the past. I know Frank Saravalli had made comments saying that he thinks McTavish is at a tough time in Anaheim so far. The losses seem to be piling up. Didn't like his body language at times and thought that maybe he was contemplating possibly wanting a change of scenery. Now, we've heard comments from Verbeek himself as well, also kind of indicating that he feels the top two lines, the top two centermen for the team this year will be Leo Carlsson and Mason McTavish. So I know, we've heard that. We've heard him say that McTavish might play with newly acquired Chris Kreider. So, I mean, I don't know that he doesn't see a role for McTavish. I don't think that's it at all. And I know that from Verbeek's standpoint, I think he likes the player. I think McTavish embodies a lot of what Verbeek wants the team to play like. So there's lots to like there. But the thing is that, this is just my opinion, but I think Pat Verbeek is kind of really good at grinding players and kind of sucking the life out of them, if you will. That to me kind of feels like what happened with Trevor Zegras and to a degree with Jamie Drysdale. They were both grinded hard in negotiations, spilled into the season and training camp, and then it was tough to recover from that. I don't know. I mean, it's just like, I know he's a tough nut to crack when it comes to negotiations, and obviously learned from Steve Yzerman. They're very similar in how they like to do their business, and it can be a little harder on the head from the player's perspective. At least it seems that way. So all the talk around maybe McTavish having some frustrations and maybe not sure about his future, I think there is some real truth to some of that. I mean, it's kind of, that's just my perspective. That's just my 2 cents. I can't back that up with my own sources or anything, but it sure seems like it makes sense to me that it could be true. But on the other hand, like I said, with what we've heard from Verbeek, I don't think his intention is to trade McTavish. I think his intention here is to get what he feels is a team-friendly bridge deal. It's not that it's not that he doesn't like the player. I just, you pile up all the losses that you've had in the last couple of years that he's experienced in being a number 3 overall pick. You see other teams and how the negotiations go, and yours seem to be going so difficult. That is just the part that wears on you. So, there is some real belief that McTavish might want a change of scenery, but I know there's other people that believe that there's nothing to that, and I guess we'll see. I mean, I know time will tell. But that McTavish negotiation is being monitored closely because there is a lot of teams that would love to get their hands on this player, and that could also be what's stemming the rumors as well, because a lot of other teams are inquiring, asking questions. They're probably not getting anywhere right now, and to some degree they're obviously looking at things and hoping that a trend continues with what we've seen with some of the other young Duck players go through, and maybe it'll end up ending with a departure. But if Verbeek gets his way, that probably won't end up happening. Now, on to all the stuff from Nick Kypreos. One of the main players he talks about in his newest article is former Leaf and Avalanche and current Flame Nazem Kadri. Now, Kadri's been an interesting player in the rumor mill this offseason. I even seen an interview with Kadri himself not too long ago, just in the past 3 or 4 days. He acknowledged that he sees and hears all of the rumors. He says it's almost impossible if you want to be on social media at all, or even with your friends and family, not to get wind of stuff that's out there. And he's like, why not, think about it, talk about it, like whatever. It doesn't seem to bother him too much. So, he knows what's out there. And Kypreos' comments says that 2 teams continue to be linked to Kadri, and he believes that Kadri would waive his no-move clause for either of them, and that would be a reunion with the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Montreal Canadiens. He feels that both teams are very interested in bringing Kadri in, and that if it got to the point where the Flames were willing to ask him about waiving to make a deal happen, that he would accept going to one of those teams. Now, that's kind of hard to say. I mean, I know based on what Kadri said and what we've heard in the past, I don't know that he would block going back to Toronto. I'm really not sure exactly how he feels about it, but I don't know that he would rule it out. But clearly there's a need for both of those teams for the type of player that he is. I mean, Montreal would absolutely, if they had a chance to get Kadri, to me, he's perfect for what they want, a number 2 center. They have a lot of young players, so to bring in a veteran who's still, not super, he's still in the earlier part of his 30s. He's got some good years left. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's got lots of playoff experience. There's a lot of wisdom and advice he could pass along to those players, a lot of maturity that he's experienced over the years. Like he could be a very big missing piece there. Of course, in Toronto, again, the type of player that he is exactly how I think Berube wants to play. I think he would fit really well with that style. And now that we've seen some changes within that lineup, and Marner's departure, and Tavares is obviously, still really good, but I think they'd love to either play Tavares on the third line or maybe move him to the wing. Like, obviously, a centerman probably would be the ideal candidate that they could pick up to add to that top six if they could. He could be a real good fit there. So, would a deal come together for Kadri in either of those teams? I mean, it's possible. Montreal has a lot more assets to intrigue Calgary, I think, than Toronto does. But, obviously, we don't really know how serious any discussions have gone. But Kaprizov seems to think that if either of those teams can strike a deal with Calgary, that he would go. So let me know what you think down below, especially if you're a fan of either of those teams. Is he the right piece that those teams are missing? Be interesting to see what everybody has to say. Also, talking about Toronto, in this article, Kaprizov goes on to talk about the fact that, whether it be Kadri or somebody else that they need to add to the forward group, clearly it's the area of weakness on this team. They got two good goaltenders. Their decor is pretty solid. I still think if they had the opportunity to add a true number one offensive D, that's something they should really consider doing as well. But generally speaking, the decor, considering all those years, early in the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era, they were highly offensive. They had all these young stars who could score goals, and they couldn't defend. Over time, that got better and better, and this decor is the best we've seen in a long time. I'll give them credit on that front. They got guys who can block shots and guys that can defend and clear the front of the net. They got some good size back there now as well. Like I said, the one thing they're missing is that true, really top-notch number one power play quarterback type of guy, right? I mean, they've got Morgan Rielly, who is going to come up here in our conversation, but obviously, to me, he's not an elite level player at that aspect of it. So, clearly, he is a player that Kaprizov wonders if Brad Treliving would go to him to waive. Trading from the decor in the area of strength to add a higher end forward to make this team more balanced is something that he really wonders if they are looking at. He thinks Brad Treliving is going to be working the phones all summer trying to add to this forward group. Obviously, we know they're trying to move players like Kempe and Järnkrok. There's probably some uncertainty around Nick Robertson to some degree, but get all these players that could go, but they're not really players with high value. So obviously, they're not going to be guys that you're going to be able to package together and land a top six forward. So you need something of better value. So that's where Rielly comes in, and he wonders if Rielly would waive. The other name he mentions as well is Brandon Carlo. Now, I know Carlo hasn't been there long, and it's not that they don't like Carlo, but we've seen just how high of a value big right shot defensemen can have. So, if they were willing to include Carlo in a trade, maybe the possibility is real that they could get themselves a real high-end forward. Now, I'm not sure who they would trade for. That's all kind of hypothetical. Basically, that we know that's what they need on the team is a high-end forward. Ideally, one with a better price contract than what Marner had to balance things out. But, at the end of the day, whether it be asking Rielly to waive, which he may not do, he feels Carlo is like the next best option 2 on that blue line to try to trade from the strength of the back end to improve the front end. So again, it feels that there's a chance that we could see the Leafs do that. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. It's going to be interesting for sure. Jason Robertson, of course, is another name that we are monitoring. Kaprizov says that the feeling is that his agent very well could ask for pretty much the same contract they gave to Mikko Rantanen, around $12 million. And obviously, depending on how the Dallas Stars feel about that contract for a guy like Robertson, will kind of determine the future. We don't know if he's going to end up signing an extension, or could he end up getting dealt. There's been lots of speculation that if they trade him, that they'd probably want a futures-based package to free up some cap space and to have more flexibility. But he's been the number one left winger on the team for a period of time. He's got multiple 80-point seasons, 100-point season, 40 goals on his record multiple times. Like, this guy's a good player. I mean, he's going to command a lot of money. The cap's going to be rising a lot in the future. So it's kind of interesting to see where this could go. Clearly, though, the Rantanen contract, I don't know. I mean, Rantanen not only brings you similar stats that Robertson's had, if not better, but then you get the Stanley Cup to his name, the playoff performance. Like, I think Rantanen is, all in all, I mean, to me, he's worth more money than Robertson is. Now, is Robertson not too far off, though? I think he comes in less than Rantanen, in my opinion. But I don't think it's like drastic. I don't think it's huge. You know, if Rantanen's 12, is Robertson maybe 11? 11 and a quarter, like something along those lines. I mean, if I'm Dallas, that's probably what I'm thinking. But again, I'm not Jim Nill. I don't know how he feels about things. But the expectations are basically that that's the type of contract that Robertson's camp's going to be looking for. Depending on how Jim Nill and the Dallas Stars management team feel about that, will determine if he is traded or signed. They also have the option here that if they don't agree on a contract, they could keep him for another year. He is under contract for the coming season. He's still got one more year left as an RFA. They could even do another one-year deal if it came down to it to walk him to free agency, and then they can make a decision before he gets there. I mean, it's a little bit risky, but they could buy themselves some time to see how the next season goes with a full year of Robertson and Rantanen kind of coexisting there as well, to see how it all plays out. But Dallas has a good team. They don't want to make themselves worse. They want to try to win a Stanley Cup here, which is what they've been doing. And obviously subtracting a player of Robertson's magnitude would not make them better. So they would be taking a step back before they get better, and I'm not sure they're ready quite to do that. So we'll see. I mean, it could be an interesting few weeks or months here in the offseason before we get to training camp to see the future of Robertson. Certainly up in the air. So are we going to see some big Leaf trades? Either bringing back now some Kadri, moving out Mo Rielly, or Brandon Carlo? Is that going to happen? What's going to happen with McTavish and the Ducks? Let me know your thoughts on all of the above here down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.